A popular fallacy by Charles Lamb, that a deformed person is a lord. After a careful perusal of the most approved works that treat of nobility, and of its origin in these realms in particular, we are left very much in the dark as to the original patent in which this branch of it is recognized. Neither Camden in his Etymology and Original of Barons, nor Dugdale in his Baronage of England, nor Selden, a more exact and laborious enquirer than either in his Titles of Honour, affords a glimpse of satisfaction upon the subject. There is an heraldic term indeed, which seems to imply gentility and the right to coat armour, but nothing further in persons thus qualified. But the sinister bend is more probably interpreted, by the best writers on this science, of some irregularity of birth, than of bodily conformation. Nobility is either hereditary, or by creation, commonly called patent. Of the former kind the title in question cannot be, seeing that the notion of it is limited to a personal distinction, which does not necessarily follow in the blood. Honours of this nature, as Mr. Anstey very well observes, descend moreover in a right line. It must be by patent then, if anything, but who can show it? How comes it to be dormant? Under what king's reign is it pretended? Among the grounds of nobility cited by the learned Mr. Ashmole after services in the field or in the council chamber, he judiciously sets down honours conferred by the sovereign out of mere benevolence, or as pg 341, favouring one subject rather than another, for some likeness or conformity observed, or but supposed in him to the royal nature. And instances the graces showered upon Charles Brandon, who in his goodly person being thought not a little to favour the port and bearing of the king's own majesty, was by that sovereign, King Henry the Eighth, for some or one of these respects, highly promoted and preferred. Here, if anywhere, we thought we had discovered a clue to our researches, but after a painful investigation of the rolls and records under the reign of Richard III, or Richard Crouchback, as he is more usually designated in the chronicles, from a traditionary stoop, or gabosity in that part, we do not find that that monarch conferred any such lordships, as are here pretended, upon any subject, or subjects, on a simple plea of conformity, in that respect to the royal nature. The posture of affairs in those tumultuous times, preceding the Battle of Bosworth, possibly left him at no leisure to attend to such niceties. Further than his reign we have not extended our inquiries. The kings of England who preceded or followed him being generally described by historians to have been of straight and clean limbs, the natural derivative, says Daniel 51, of high blood, if not its primitive recommendation to such a noblement, as denoting strength and martial prowess, the qualities set most by in that fighting age. Another motive which inclines us to scruple the validity of this claim is the remarkable fact that none of the persons in whom the right is supposed to be vested do ever insist upon it themselves. There is no instance of any of them suing his patent, as the law books call it, much less of his having actually stepped up into his proper seat, as so qualified we might expect that some of them would have had the spirit to do in the House of Lords. On the contrary, it seems to be a distinction thrust upon them. Their title of lord, says one of their own body speaking of the common people, I never much valued, and now I entirely despise, and yet they will force it upon me as an honour which they have a right to bestow, and which I have none to refuse. 52. Upon a dispassionate review of the subject, we are disposed to believe that there is no right to the peerage incident pg 342 to mere bodily configuration, that the title in dispute is merely honorary, and depending upon the breath of the common people, which in these realms is so far from the power of conferring nobility, that the ablest constitutionalists have agreed in nothing more unanimously than in the maxim that the king is the sole fountain of honour.